All right, I think we are live. Let me know if there are ever any audio issues, as always. Okay, so today we are going to be talking about navigating the waters of preteen girls and just everything to do, hey Ashley, everything to do with, you know, pre-puberty, being a preteen, all the hormones and emotions leading up to it. Someone left a comment asking me to do this subject, and I am always more than willing to do any subject that you want me to do, barring, of course, that I have experience in that. And this is actually very easy for me to talk about because I have 6 girls. I have one raised, almost 20. I have one almost raised, 17 and a half. I have a 14-year-old and I have a 10-year-old. So I have been going through this process now for like the last, she's almost 20. I would say between about 10 and 12 is kind of where the pre-puberty stuff starts. So I've been going through it for a long time. We'll just say that. Hey, Cindy. Hey, Fiona. Fiona, nice to see you. You don't usually make it at this time. Hey, Shara, and hey, Sarah. Good to have you guys on. I do see the members, some of the members in the live chat, and I am going to try to get to a members live this week. This week should be a little bit slower than the last few weeks. If you don't know, last Saturday, so not this last Saturday we just had, but a week past that, my son Jason got engaged to Elizabeth Gayton. We are very happy about that. She's actually out of Pastor Angel's church, the man, the myth, and legend that I've talked about very often, that I listen to a lot of his teaching. I am, if I'm ever around, going to try to ask Mrs. Angel to come on my show eventually and maybe do her marriage talk that she had done at the retreat that I was at, because I lost my notes for that and she would be better at that anyways. So I'm going to try to definitely get her on here. But yes, um, it was very nice. So he had this whole big elaborate thing planned. He wanted to surprise her. She knew it was kind of coming because they had been talking about marriage and getting a ring and all this. I'm just going to check the audio settings really quickly. But she knew it was coming. So, but she didn't know when. And so he kind of came up with, I'm going to turn this up a little bit. This is a little low. Let me know if that's too high. It was a little low. So he wanted to surprise her because that was the main thing that he wanted to do, was to surprise her. So he came up with an elaborate scheme. He was going to tell her he was at a friend's house doing paintball. She was going to go to Chicago with one of her best friends, Carla, and they were going to just sightsee for the whole day, since Jason and her wouldn't be able to do something that day because he was going to be elsewhere. So she was with her friend Carla, and in the meantime, all of us were making our way to Chicago. So there's this place right along the river, along Lake Michigan, Lakeshore Drive, and it's just really pretty. And the funny thing is that when we were all walking up, there was already several people set up to do proposals, and they were all out. Like, they hired, I guess there's companies that do this on Instagram, and they are hired out to just do this big elaborate props and setups and lights, and like one even had this red carpet that was rolled out. It was pretty intense. So Jason, seeing all of it, he was like, oh man, I really hope like they're done by the time she gets here. So while all of the family was getting there and we were all kind of waiting and watching, he had just like this little board that says, will you marry me on it, with roses and rose petals and these like fake candles, like this little elaborate setup or something. And he was in contact with Carla the whole time. And he dropped her a pin for our location, so she knew how to get there. So then she told um, Liz, my dad's going to be in Chicago and he's going to pick us up, but let's just walk along the lake while we wait because he's going to come to this spot or whatever. So Liz had no idea. And it was so funny because Jason was kind of set up here, and her parents were like, us and her parents, it was like you walk along the river, the lake, sorry, not the river. You walk along the lake, he's here, and then you keep walking and there's a curb. We were over on the curb just kind of watching. And we spotted her. I could tell Jason was so nervous. It was so cute. We spotted her, and I could tell she had no idea because she was like going off into the sand and taking pictures. And you could tell Carla was like trying to get her onto the pathway to meet Jason. And so finally, she had broken her glasses and didn't have contacts, so she could barely see. So she didn't actually see him until she was relatively close. And then Carla said, Liz, give me your bags. And Liz was like, why? And she's like, there's Jason. And so then she saw Jason and it was super sweet. And he proposed and she said yes. And we screamed and clapped and, you know, all the good stuff. And it was great because he pulled it off. He pulled off the surprise, which we were super thrilled about. So that is the story of their engagement. So they are planning on getting married May 31st of next year. So pray for them. He's got a whole house to get ready in that time. He only has the bedroom done right now. The bathroom is gutted. He needs to get the living room done, the small other room, something to do with the kitchen. So he's got a lot on his plate right now, a lot to get ready for, but pray for them as they go into that transition. And it's an exciting time in the McMurtry home. My kids are growing up and it's fun to watch and fun to be involved and fun to just the excitement of everything. Interestingly enough, when we were there, when he was proposing, we saw 4 proposals that day. We got to see all of them. It was pretty sweet. So, hey, Chanello. Hey, Kaylin. But anyways, let's get into today's topic. So, how do I get my girls ready for going through puberty? First of all, notice the signs as they're headed into the wonderful land of prepubescent years. I actually do like the movie Inside Out, and some of you are just anti-movie, anti-every movie. I kind of like it. I don't pick up that there's like weird vibes in it. If it comes out there is, well, that's Hollywood for you. But me being innocent, I don't really pick up on all of that. I just like how they kind of show all the emotions that she's going through and Inside Out too, as she's leading up to this time, because it is a very tough time. I will say that. It is a very, very tough time in their life, and you have to tread the waters carefully because your voice and the things you say is going to stay in their head, and then they're going to remember it over and over and over again their entire lives, because it's very, very important what we as moms say to our growing daughters, especially in this time period. They're very sensitive. Things are very volatile. They're changing every day. Their bodies are changing. Their emotions are changing. Their hormones are changing. They have no idea what's going on. It's very confusing. So some of the things that I watch out for is around 10, because it's getting earlier and earlier that they start this. So around 10 is about 9 or 10 is about the time it starts with my girls. They show all the signs of just not really knowing how to handle things that come their way, being very overwhelmed very easily, I think, is one of the things. They have a hard time multitasking. They get very overwhelmed to the point of tears if they feel like you're pushing them too hard. So you have to be really careful when it comes to this time in their life. Talk to them, communicate in age-appropriate conversations. So this is not something that we're really shy about in the McMurtry home. Having 6 girls, my boys know all about cycles and things in a woman's life. It's just inevitable. We talk about it in age appropriate. If you listen to all my kids talk, you'll find that they're very socially attuned to things. They can carry a conversation on with you, with any adult, you know. They're polite. They don't use foul language. Just listen to the way that they talk and you'll pick up kind of how we talk to them, because kids often talk how you talk to them. So that's more is caught than is taught, right? So talk to them, communicate in age-appropriate conversations. So we don't shy away from this topic. I try to be very open with my girls about what's coming next, what's going to happen. I don't have to go into graphic detail, but I do tell them things like your body is changing. Eventually, you're going to have what's known as a cycle. That is where your uterine lining sheds every month. And then the whole month it works on preparing for when you're an adult and you get married and you can have a baby. So that's kind of how I explain it. Obviously, as we get closer to adulthood, that changes, you know, as I see fit, and I use the correct terms and all of that. But at 9, they don't really need to learn like every single term that there is to learn. So I am very open about it. It's not something that's taboo. Oftentimes my boys would come home and you could feel the tension and they're just like, what is wrong? Is like every girl in this house on their period. So it's not something that we really shy away from, because it's just life. It's life. And it's not bad or embarrassing or something that's taboo. And so we talk openly about it, not in a crass way, not in a gross way, in a realistic way. We're women. This is what happens, you know, and I don't want it to be uncomfortable because it's not bad and it's not wrong and it's just life, right? So I try to communicate in age-appropriate conversations. I make sure they have the materials needed when they start. This is where this is. If you ever need this, come talk to me. You know, you're going to use this. I explain it when it actually happens. And I try not to make it awkward. I have approached it with all of my kids. It's just very point blank, very common sense. This is what we do, you know, whatever. So now what are my expectations for my girls during these years? I would say about 9 to about 14. For me personally, this is the hardest age for my girls, for me and my girls. Like I said, they are very, just watch Inside Out 2. You'll see. That's exactly how it is. That's why I liked that movie, because it just kind of pinpointed, it kind of showed exactly what girls at that age go through and just everything going on in their head. And so if I could have done it in a, you know, cartoon way to show, that would have been it. So, but I still expect my girls to do chores. I still expect them to do school. I still expect them to talk respectfully. I feel like my girls struggle with their mouth and sassing the most from this age, about 10 to 14. Usually by the time they hit 14 or 15, they have a clue that, okay, mom's in charge. Even if I'm mouth off, you know, I'm going to get my tablet taken away or whatever consequence we come up for that. So, and then I also tell them they still need to be amicable towards their siblings. They still need to be pleasant. They can't just fly off the handle just because they're not feeling it, or they feel rough, or they're confused, or whatever. And so I do expect all of those things out of my girls. Now, I do notice that something shifts with their sleeping. The closer that they get to being a teenager, the more sleep they require. And as they start their cycle, the more sleep they're going to require. My girls are very sleepy the week of their cycle as well. They just don't feel good. They're sleepy. I feel the same way. So I do, I'm not one of these like Nazis in the morning where like I expect like a school Nazi where I just want them to get up by 6:30 and have this done by this time. One of the beauties of homeschooling is that they can sleep in a little bit longer. So I do let them sleep in 8, 9 o'clock sometimes. Mondays are our slow days. My older two slept through past 9 today, and their body needs extra sleep at this time. It's changing, it's developing. So definitely don't begrudge them extra sleep during this time. That being said, they're still expected to get all those things done in the time that they, you know, wake up. So what are some things that'll start to happen? Well, they're going to get body odor. Okay. So as moms, we really got to teach our kids about hygiene. And usually it only takes about one time of embarrassment for them to realize that they smell, and they get the hint, and then they start bathing regularly. So if you are against deodorant, get a natural deodorant. Get a Lumi or Native or something that doesn't have the chemicals in it. Teach them to bathe every day, because that's going to cut down on the odor the most. But they're probably at this point, they're going to need to start bathing every day. When they were younger, it's not an issue, you know, birth through 7, 8, sometimes 9, 10. It's not an issue. But the older they get, the more they stink, and they're going to need to bathe every day. So teach them to bathe every day. They're going to start having mood changes and not understanding, why do I feel this way? You know, this is when they're coming into kind of being an adult in a way, as far as their body changing. They're going to get awkward socially. Things that used to be easy for them suddenly aren't. They become self-aware. They start becoming self-conscious. So you are there as their mom to encourage them gently, but to also try to get them to go out of their bubble, because you don't want them to just shy away from making friends, talking to people, you know, talking. Even like with my girls, I make them order their own food sometimes, or I make them pay for their stuff. I make them talk to the cashier, you know, just pushing them out of their comfort zone. So pushing them out of their comfort zone to do something that they're not so comfortable with. And then they're going to have a lot of hostility at this age too. It's going to come out in the form of anger. And you're going to have to teach them how to manage that anger. It's okay to be angry at times, but it's not okay to hurt people with that anger. So you're going to have to teach them how to handle their hostility. And then, so what are some ways that we manage those things? Obviously, teach them about hygiene. Yes, teach them about dental hygiene. For mine, that would be I floss every single day. Like that's one of my picky things. Because like a few years ago, I never had a cavity until I had kids. Like my whole growing up as a kid, adulthood, I did not have my first cavity till I was in my 20s. And then since then, I've had a few. And they told me, they said, your body leaches what it needs out of your teeth for the baby. And that made a lot of sense because the more kids I had, I tended to get more cavities. So I had a few years ago one growing between my teeth, and she told me, she said, I was not a flosser back then, but she told me, the dental hygienist told me, if you floss every single night, this will not grow further. Like you might be able to reverse it, you might be able to stop it. And I've flossed every single night since then, and it has not, I have no issues, zero issues with it. So it's either on the last x-ray I had, there was nothing there. So that kind of took care of it. But yeah, dental hygiene is really, really good. Teach them, sometimes they will feel sad, but they are in control of their responses to me, to their dad, to others. Gently guide them through new situations in life that will happen. And this will come in the form of, friends that say hurtful things. Teach them not to say hurtful things to their friends. This is a really catty age for girls. When I say catty, like they're they can be, especially if there's lots of girls and hormones going on at the same time, they can be at each other's throats. They can say mean, hurtful things. So this kind of paves the ground for teaching them how to do relationships later on in life. If you're mean and nasty to everyone, they're going to be mean and nasty in return. Yes, that was hurtful what she said. So just tell her, say, that was really hurtful. Can we talk about this? But not to exchange hostility for hostility. Teach them that they are in control of their mouth and they need to be careful about the things they say, whether that's to you, whether that's to others. So I was also asked, how do we allow our daughters to kind of grow up and start loosening the reins of, control, letting them have more responsibility, letting them have more freedom? Well, number one, don't be too controlling. I was raised in a very controlled environment as far as no questions were allowed. It was just shut up and do it, right? Well, the word shut up wasn't even used in my house. I'm gonna say that. It was not even used in our house, but it was, and I'm a person who questions things naturally. I go against the status quo. I don't like people trying to manipulate me or control what I think, control my belief system, control my convictions. I don't like it when people do that to me. It's one of my triggers, if you want to use that word. And I'm usually not friends with people that will do that with me. And I try not to do that to other people. I like open conversation. I like differing opinions. I like being able to bounce things off of each other. It's fun. It would be boring if we lived in an echo chamber where everyone agreed with us. So I was raised in a very, very, very controlled environment in that regards. And, my mom did the best she could. I'm not slamming her for it. But she did the best with what she had. She was a first generation Christian. She was new to all this. So her form was just like squash all resistance, right? Like squash all resistance. Don't allow questions. Do as I say. And so as a mom, I've tried to be a little bit more free in that area because with my personality, I did not like it. Even my husband and I, we have very passionate, heated back and forth, sometimes not arguing. Well, discussing, I would say. And there are many times I don't agree with something he doesn't agree with something I do, and we just talk about it. And at the end of the day, it's not going to change anything whether or not I agree with him. I'm going to do what he leads us to do. But he is also another that does not mind discussion about things. That's how he is with me. That's how anyone in our church knows that. There's people here that disagree with him on different things, even little things in prophecy, and he welcomes open discussion on those. He's not intimidated by that. And it's the same with me. I'm not intimidated by someone who has a different opinion than me. And so with my kids, I kind of allow them to have freedom to question things, wonder why. And as parents, my husband preached a tremendous sermon last night. And honestly, he puts it so much better than me because he's a speaker. I'm not a speaker, I'm a writer. He's a speaker, but he talks, he kind of outlines the way that we discipline in that sermon. It's something about the enemies of like your heart or something, like something about that. I don't know the exact title. Something about, he's doing enemy series. Last week he did the enemies of soul winning. This week he did the enemies of your heart or something like that. And in it, he talks a lot about raising kids and how we have to, as parents, we have to have their hearts. It's not about locking them in our basement. It's not about controlling them. It's not about squashing all resistance. It's about having their heart and instilling these things in their heart. So because of that, I really want to know the questions. I want to know the doubts. I want to explain it to my children in a way that they'll adopt those principles eventually as they get older. Without me having to beat it into them or whatever. So yeah, that's a really good sermon if you want to check that out. And he outlines too, I'm not comfortable on this channel talking about discipline and all the ways to go about that. I've never been comfortable with that. We live in a world where corporal punishment of any kind is looked down on. And even though the world has changed in those regards, the Bible is still true. And the Bible it gives you advice for raising children, and corporal punishment is one of them. So everything with balance is good and acceptable, especially if the Bible says it. But I do think parents can take it too far. So he kind of outlines how we do discipline in there. And if you're interested in that, go watch that. I'll let him talk about it. It's better than me. Thank you, Sarah. She just put the link for it in there, but he does a really good job explaining that. We want children, Janello, exactly. We want children that are going to be able to articulate why they believe what they believe in the world that we live in, because they're going to get thrown a lot of things, from the media through Hollywood, different things like that. It's going to be thrown their way all the time. So knowing your enemies of the heart. Thank you. I cannot think of the exact phrase, and it was pretty much that. So if your kids haven't given you a reason to mistrust them, then don't mistrust them. All teenagers aren't evil and bad. All kids aren't evil and bad. Now you're going to say, but the heart is desperately wicked. Yes, I know we're all bent. I'm just saying overall, we all have choices to make, but at the end of the day, sometimes we choose good things, sometimes we choose bad things. So, cut them a little slack. They're not all evil, manipulative, and bad. If they haven't given you any reason to mistrust them, don't mistrust them. If they ask to go to the store and you have no valid reason for not letting them go to the store, if they've never, gone and done something that's against the rules in your house, then it's kind of weird not to let them do that. That's a weird example, but it could be anything, going and hanging out with a friend, running to get coffee, I don't know, whatever it is. So have age appropriate responsibilities and rewards for those things accomplished. There are some chores that my children just have to do. They're not going to get paid for it. They're part of the McMurtry house. We all work at making the home run, and they're not paying rent. Obviously, they're not, they're our responsibility to raise, but they need to learn how to be hard workers too. So chores are still acceptable in this day and age we live in. But there are some extra things that we do that they can do where we'll, we'll pay them, such as like if they have to watch the kids, I pay the ones that watch the girls while I teach piano, they get paid for it. If we go on a date, a lot of times I'll pay them. If they do like a big job, like cleaning the basement, they'll get paid for that. So there are things that they do sometimes that they get extra reimbursement for. Let them stretch their wings a little. Like I said, I am all for girls getting their licenses. All of our daughters get it when they're 16. Our boys have gotten it when they're 16. They all get it at 16. There are some minor things in our home, such as makeup, nail polish, and jewelry. Those are not an issue. I do not fight over those. I think they're very, very minor. And I've never had a girl that's taken it too far. So even though Chloe, Abby, I don't even know if Chloe ever wears makeup, actually. We totally leave that up to her. Like, that's her choice. And I'm thinking, I think for the most part, I know when she was working at the camp all summer, they don't have rules against it, but she was just so busy, she never took the time to do it. And I think she got used to just not wearing it. So she kind of prefers that. And that's her choice. But Chloe likes jewelry, Abby doesn't. You know, some of my girls like nail polish, some of them don't. And I just kind of leave that up to them. I've never fought that stuff. I think it's kind of silly and trivial, and they're bigger fish to fry. So, but there are some major things in the McMurtry home, such as dating. We do not allow dating until they're 18. That is a big one. So talking to someone without us knowing, cursing, smoking, drinking, movies with nudity and cussing, lying, sneaking around. Those are big major things that no, they are not prohibited in the McMurtry home. So far, we've not had to deal with any of that. So that's good. You know, there's been a couple little issues that have, obviously you're raising kids, there's going to be little issues that have popped up, but we try to deal with them. As moms, we really got to watch. And I think we have a gut instinct for maybe my child's not being as open with me as normal. And I really got to get to the bottom of this. So we kind of have a gut instinct that there might be something more going on, and we kind of dig and we can figure that out. So, but what about when it comes to responsibility, like girls having jobs? I am not against this, and I think it is a girl by girl basis. Now, if I had a girl that was just bent on rebellion and sneaking around and lying, I would probably not allow her to get a job because she's not proven herself trustworthy in those areas. But if I have a very respectable daughter who follows the rules and is trying to please her dad and I, such as Abby and Chloe, both of them so far have been that way, then I have no problems with them getting into a safe environment, one that I would deem safe. We've pretty much already eliminated food industry jobs. We don't want our daughters working McDonald's or Culver's, Pizza Ranch, because our boys did, and it was pretty nasty at times. And I don't want to subject my girls to that. So things like detasseling, the boys both did it, but it was very rough physically. And I would not put my daughter out there in the mud with all the profanity using boys out there, and I really don't want them around that. So the job that Abby has right now is perfect, is in a daycare. She loves kids, and she is around only girls. It's all girls who work there. So it's girls and kids, it's girls and babies, and it's perfect. So that's what she does. Chloe worked at the summer, or worked the summer. She worked the summer. She worked at the camp this summer. That was perfect. We love the people there. We know the people there. It's a very controlled environment as far as no dating, you know. I mean, the camp is like a refuge in and of itself because it's all centered around Christ and godly music and devotions and the Bible and preaching like every single week. And it was really good for her. I really saw her grow and stretch and make new friendships. And it was really good. And she didn't do anything during the entire summer to make us not trust her on something. So I do not have a problem with girls having jobs. It just depends on the job. Now, if you have a different train of thought, that's fine. You know, this is my home. This is the McMurtry home. I'm giving you my opinions. You don't have to follow them. This is just what we've done in our home, and it's working so far, so we're going to keep doing it. What about girls going to college? We've not had a girl want to go to college yet. I don't think my husband's super crazy about it, but I think if we had a godly girl that said, Dad, I really want to go to college. Can we make this work? It would probably be most likely be the college an hour and a half from here that we know all the people there. They know us, you know, we're within an hour and a half drive there. So I can't say because we haven't really faced that yet. And then what about dating? So like I said, with our girls, with dating, we do 18 years old, and then it's chaperone dating, and that can be with a sibling. We haven't had any girls that have tried breaking this rule. It's just kind of accepted. I really want my girls to enjoy their childhood and growing up, and I don't like them having the pressures of, you know, a relationship so young. I want them to enjoy this time of their life. So that's my thoughts on it. Now, mother-daughter relationship, let's go over this real quick. I personally believe that a mother-daughter relationship is harder than a son-mom relationship, at least in my experience. Now, I only have 2 boys and then I have 6 girls. My boys, I feel it's just been easier because we can just have it out and then they're over it. With my girls, I feel like you have to be really careful because they can carry around resentment of something maybe that you said flippantly or in anger for a really long time. They remember things, they take things more personally. They have a hard time getting over harsh words and statements, etc. So you have to be really careful with your daughters, I think, more than your boys. Your boys can handle more, and your boys can handle more truth bombs, where your girls, you have to be a little bit more gentle. Speak truth gently because they do take things harder. Everything that you say, they're probably going to think about and internalize and just, run it over and over and over and over in their heads. So think about us, for example, if our husband says something condescending to us or mean, and maybe it really isn't, but it comes across that way. Maybe it's that time of month and we just take it harder. And I'm sorry, I've had women literally get mad at me for saying that we take things harder around the time of our period, but that's just how it works. It's science, it's hormones. There's no way around that. I don't understand getting mad at people who say that women are angrier, angrier, more emotional during that week, because we are. Really, the only time that I struggle with like feeling overwhelmed or anxiety is like 3 days before my cycle begins. So that maybe, okay, maybe other women aren't like that. Tell me if you're not like that in the comments. Tell me in the live chat, like, is it different for you? But for me and my daughters, we struggle more around the time that our cycle begins. So maybe, and I take things harder than I take criticism harder than I feel like everyone's against me, and then I start my period and everything's fine. The birds are singing and the roses are blooming and whatever. So, especially around that time, speak truth gently because they definitely take things harder, and protect their self-image while making sure that they don't get cocky or arrogant. And this goes hand in hand, like love and correction goes hand in hand, correction and love goes hand in hand. And so if you have like too much love bombing and just like, oh, you're wonderful, we're here to train our daughters into being good human beings, right? So sometimes you just have to check things, whether that's with their tongue or their attitude, the way that they're treating others, the way that they're treating their dad. My kids they've never treated their dad. That doesn't really even apply. I'm the one that usually gets the brunt because I'm with them more. And yeah, most of my kids tend to prefer their dad over me because he's the fun guy. But yeah, just anything that it comes, they need to be trained. We're here to train them. So we kind of got to check some things sometimes, but we can do it in a loving way. We don't have to say mean words. We don't have to criticize physical looks or even hammer flaws that they have, because we have flaws as well. And if we don't want our flaws hammered, then we shouldn't like constantly hammer our kids' flaws. Sometimes I feel kids can act up and we can have a really tough week. And as moms, we try to overcompensate by just bringing the hammer down. Sometimes we just need to stop and take a step back and be like, how can I get to the heart of the matter? Like, what's wrong with my child's heart? And I found that sometimes if I just take them out for an ice cream, or I just take a little bit of time to sit next to them and talk to them, that can clear up whatever feelings they're experiencing or whatever. And then they suddenly become different. Praise works wonders. So if you just are like banging your head against the wall, just trying to figure out, why am I having such a tough week with my kid? They're not listening to me. They're giving me attitude. They're sassing me. Take a minute, back up, and just maybe reassess and think, have I been overly negative with zero positive? If you have been overly negative, you might need to focus on maybe being more positive. Instead of nitpicking the bad things they did. You yelled at your sister. You need to knock it off. Look for a time when they're kind. Okay. Lana, I was very proud of you. You could have lashed out. and instead you chose kindness. You know, that's what Jesus would have done. Jesus would have chosen kindness over lashing out. I'm very, very proud of you. You know, things like that. When they help around the house, Lana just blooms under praise. Fiona has seen this. And so if you tell her, and she's at that tough age, she's 10. So she's right at that tough age. You know, Lana, I'm so glad you made that choice to help me pick up around the house instead of making a mess, you know, just different things like that. A lot of kids will flourish under praise a lot more than the negative comments. So your words do matter, but okay, so their self-image. I'm sorry, let's go back to that. So what are some ways that you can let them know their worth? You can share how important they are to you and your dad. You can hug them. You can tell them you love them. Even teenagers need this. Teenagers need to be validated in the fact that their parents love them. So you can praise them. You can compliment them. There's a lot of good ways. You can talk positively of them to others. If you're in the ministry, you can encourage your church members to be there to support your children. And this is one thing that our church is super great at. They encourage our kids, they're rooting for their success, and they're behind them 100%. And my kids know that. And so that's very, very important for children to know that people are behind them, wanting them to succeed. That's super, super important. So that's one way that you can create a healthy self-image. You know, your words do matter. What you says matters. The way that you say it matters. And a lot of times, you are going to be the voice that she will hear in her head for a long time. I still remember, and I'll never bring them up, but I still remember, I will bring up one of the positive things my mom told me. I still remember some of the negative things that were said as a kid. And I don't think you ever forget that when it comes from someone you love and when it comes from a parent. So I have to be I think about that often when it comes to my own children. One of the things my mom told me when I was like 7 or 8 was she told me, she said, Cassie, I love it when you smile because it lights up your whole eye, like your whole face. She said, and your eyes twinkle when you smile. And I've never forgotten that. And um, my husband has told me before, I love your smile. Like when we were first dating, one of the things he told me, you know, back when you're dating, they're all like, oh, you're so beautiful and all this stuff. And he told me, you have the most fabulous smile. Like your eyes just light up when you smile. And I've never forgotten that. And so just my mom saying something positive to me about one of my physical features when I was 7, 8 years old. I'm 43 and I still remember when she told me that. I'm 43 and I still remember. So kids, oftentimes when they're growing up, they're going to remember a lot of the bad experiences over the good. And you need to make sure that your good experiences far outweigh the bad. We all had bad days. We all had bad moments. My husband said, we were kind of talking about this topic of having a happy home and stuff like that. And he was like, overheard him saying, we all have bad moments. We all have bad times where we lose our temper, or, you know, we say things that we wish we wouldn't have, or we do things that we wish we wouldn't have. He said, but as parents, we have to make sure that those bad moments don't happen over and over and over again. And it needs to be such a rare thing in our kids' lives that the 100 good moments will far outweigh the one bad moment. So as parents, we all do things we regret. We all do things we wish we could take back. But try in your home to just have, you know, have so many more good moments rather than the bad moments. And I'm telling you, for every word that you tell your daughter, she's going to remember the bad thing usually over the good thing. So you have to really, really guard your words and guard your mouth when it comes to raising your kids. And that can be a hard thing sometimes in the middle of stress, and life is stressful. Raising kids is stressful. So that can be really, really tough when you're in the middle of it. But really try to just shut your mouth. Shut your mouth. Just shut your mouth. It's okay to delegate chores, and it's okay to give them chores, and it's okay to have them do different things around the house. But at the end of the day, you run your household. And there is a balance sometimes with this, because sometimes older daughters tend to be the voice in the home, even sometimes over years. Like my older girls have done this. The babies will do something and they'll go to correct it. I'm like, I've got it. I've got it. And they're like, Mom, I can deal with it. I'm like, no, I've got it. I've got it. I'm the mom. So sometimes you have to just kind of remind them, like, I'm the mom. And if you have older kids that sometimes babysit, this can be especially harder because sometimes they are used to just dealing with it, right? And then sometimes you just have to step in and you're like, no, I've got it. Like, I've got it. So, hey, Elena, I don't know how you say your name. Elena? Yes, and I agree, Chanello. And also, just say, I'm sorry, I snapped at you. That was uncalled for. You're right. Your kids are going to believe if you're trying your best. So, and an apology goes a long way too. Recognize your daughter's worth and let her know how special she is. Just like sometimes it's okay to, it's okay to tell your daughter she's beautiful. It's okay to tell your daughter she's pretty. It's okay to tell your daughter you like her hairstyle or her dress or her clothing or whatever it is. But not only that, point out good things with her character. I noticed that you were kind to your friend, and that really made me happy. I noticed that you read your Bible voluntarily, and that really made me happy. I noticed that even though your sister was being annoying and trying to irritate you, you didn't irritate her back. That's a good trait. Just try to kind of comment on the character of things that she has. So, and then lastly, I know this is going to be a little bit short, but that's okay. You exhibit the best behavior to her. You are the best model for her. I just had one of my friends tell me today, who's not even a Christian. She's not a Christian, but we talk about different things that are, interesting to both of us. It's my friend from England. And she just told me today that she uses the phrase often, more things are caught than taught. And it's just a good principle, Christian or not, it's a good principle. If you want to know why children have a certain set of values or beliefs, oftentimes they've gotten it from their parents. If you want to know why children talk the way they do, act the way they do, they've probably gotten it from their parents. Whatever is exhibited in the home is going to come out in the behavior, even after they're gone out of the house. A lot of times, whether or not they're going to continue on in the path of being a Christian, going to a Baptist church, serving in their Baptist church, it's based off the heart of why you do things. Why are you in the ministry? Is it for vainglory, or is it because you truly care about people? Or are you doing it for the Lord? People are a poor investment, and my husband and I have often said this. That's why our philosophy when it comes to ministry, it's all about God, not the people. Everything in life that we have or possess, or whether that's our house or our children even, or Liberty Baptist Church. My husband was asked the other day, even with our kids, he's like, what did you do? Like, why are they turning out? Why are they, Baptist still? Why did they still want to continue? And he said, I don't know. Like, the older we get, the less we know. But I think they have seen that our heart is in this for the Lord, not people, because people have let us down. People have turned on us. People have walked away and lied and said horrible things. They've done that, but we're not here for the people. We're not doing this for the people. As much as I love all of you from Liberty, I love you. I love you. And when you're here in this church, I will pour my heart and soul into you. And if you ever decide to walk away, it will hurt, and it will hurt badly. But I'm doing that because I love the Lord. I love you too, but I love the Lord more. And so at the end of the day, everyone could turn on us and we would be left with just our family, but it would be enough because we love the Lord and He has never left us. And that's why we're doing this. The Lord builds the church. We don't build the church. The Lord builds our family. Yes, there's certain principles and things in place that we can do, but ultimately He gets all the honor and He gets all the glory because we fail. We fail often. We fail every day. We're not perfect. And I think your kids know that too. And as long as your daughters and your sons know that there is love there for you and love for the Lord, everything could be solved two ways, usually in problems in homes. Love God, love your husband, and love your kids. And in reverse, problems could be solved with kids if you would teach them to love God, love whoever they marry, and love you in that order. So if you would just teach those few basic things, and the Bible sums it up by saying the greatest commandments are what? Love the Lord and love others. And if you do those two things, that pretty much covers everything that you need to know about raising kids, about serving the Lord, about everything. So that's it. That is it for today. Check out that sermon my husband preached. It was a really good one. He will be doing a few sermons on the home in the next few weeks, just along those same lines. Like, I think not a few sermons, but I think in that series he's going to be doing like, oh, sorry, my microphone's falling. He's going to be doing enemies of the home. So basically protecting your home. So watch out for that too. So we will see you guys. Members, I am going to try to pop on here this week and do something. I don't know what, but I'm not trying to neglect you. But I'll pop on here over the next couple days. So have a great week, ladies, and we will see you next week.